it's Carolyn with another Kira Studios video, and today I want to do two things. I want to round out the recent Better Proportions series by talking about once we have better proportions, how do we get from kind of sort of mesh shapes that look a little bit like the thing we were drawing, how do we move those shapes to killer shapes, to shapes that look exactly like the thing that we are looking at? And the second thing I want to talk about is why even bother using all these tools? Why bother going through the trouble of using alignments, triangulation, measuring in increments? Why can't I just fall into my own drawing groove and enjoy my drawing? Why do I have to interrupt it and use some of these tools that I was presenting to you guys? And what's the benefit of it? So that's what we'll talk about, and let's jump right in.
So here you see me lay in the underdrawing. I begin with my blobs, and then I immediately establish my relationships by looking at the big enveloping shape, horizontal and vertical alignments. How do the bottoms of the fruit relate to each other? How do the tops relate to each other? And I'm also looking at negative spaces and all that legwork, so it ensures me that I capture the overall look of this arrangement. Once I have the overall relationships, then I start to become more interested in the shapes, and I want to capture the specific shapes without becoming detailed yet. So you might think to yourself, well, what's the difference between being specific and being detailed? The difference is that when you're specific, you're looking at where the apex of your curves are, instead of where the teeny tiny little bumps and indentations that are surface detail. Once you have that, then you capture the character of the item that you're drawing. So here's what I mean by that. When you're drawing a leaf, begin with your blob, just establishing the placement and the scale. If you draw it like I'm drawing it here, we just kind of go around the outer edge in one fell swoop and maybe put in some little details in it, you're going to get a watered down version of that leaf. It's going to look somewhat like the leaf, but it's going to be meh. It's not quite as specific. If you want to draw exactly that specific leaf in front of you, you will want to break your curves into straight angles. So think of straight architectural lines that change direction very specifically at any given point. And so I draw these angles longer than they need to be because we want to get away from this. We want to get away from this symbolic idea of what something is supposed to look like. We have all these supposed tos locked in our brain, but if we split our contours into straight angles, we shift away from our assumptions about whatever it is we're drawing. And that really is the goal of measuring and of checking alignments and of triangulating. You want to get away from those assumptions about what it's supposed to look like and what real life is truly presenting us with. So to get away from these symbols, we want to abstract the thing we're drawing, and we abstract it by breaking things into angles, by looking at negative spaces, by triangulating, by measuring height to width relationships. All those things I've been talking about, now you understand why we're doing this and why we don't just fall into our own rhythm of drawing things and enjoying it, which, is fun in its own right. But if we truly want to get better, this is what we want to do. And then it allows you the freedom to place details in exactly the right spots. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm finishing out those last little veins on the leaf, and I know that they're going to be in the right position relative to the outer edge. And then if you want to, you can add even more detail or line variation to that contour. So this is what we want to avoid, a drawing that kind of sort of looks like the thing, has all right proportions, but we want to have something more specific. And we do that by breaking our curves into angles with very clear apices. So here is me back in the real drawing doing just that. Any shape that I blobbed out earlier gets a angular treatment. And so As you're doing this, the question to yourself is, where is the direction change? How long is that segment of the edge? How short is that segment? Is it very steep and upright, or is it long and flat? So those are the kind of questions that you're thinking about. And as you're doing this work, check your pencils, make sure that they're really sharp, because the sharper a point you have on your pencil, the more precise you can be. And once you have your first pass on these more specific shapes and you're happy with them, then it's finally time for the beloved details, those things that we are itching to get to in the beginning of the drawing. Now you finally have time and the peace of mind that they'll end up in the right position. So again, we want to abstract our drawings so we can get away from our assumptions. Our assumptions keep us from seeing life in the way it truly is. We're assuming an orange is round, it's supposed to be curved, but what kind of a round is it? You get an answer to that kind of question by using all these tools that we've been covering in the last 4 videos. So I hope you find this useful. I hope you start using this, and I'll see you next week with a new video.